looking right now at the answers to our Monday question. When hiring internally for a new product manager, what background do you look for? So the first answer we got actually was from Robert Goldberg, who's not with us. He's at a company where they've been putting a lot of money into understanding product management and building the product organization. And so some interesting details from them. They found that a good percentage of their product managers came from customer service and technology backgrounds. Few came from product management or had prior product management experience from other companies. We teach them product management. This is actually a theme you're going to see going through what's going on. At higher levels, people managing multiple products, product managers, we always hire people internally or externally with product management experience. Sort of a little divergent there of if it's a new person to product management and a sort of an individual contributor role, or somebody who's managing a team of product managers. At a prior company, we always look for people with subject matter expertise and passion for product management, and thought we could teach them to be a better product manager. Now, Steve, I want to get your take on this because you've taught probably more product managers than most people have. Subject matter expertise versus somebody from inside. What's your take on bringing in this external domain expert and teaching them product management?
I didn't necessarily associate subject matter expert and outside as being the same thing, but
that's true.
Well, I certainly I've spent a lot of time teaching product managers, and they do come from myriad backgrounds. And reflecting on a little bit more on that note, I think there is very much logic to hiring product management leadership with experience in product management. So I would say the bigger issue is not the product managers, but their managers.
Yeah.
So I've had success hiring sales engineers and former developers and former product managers from other companies. But I would say, so I'm completely changing the question. So
as you do every week, Steve.
Yeah. The issue of knowledge of product management is more important for the leader of that group. And we see that in particular when you hire a product manager and have them report to, say, a VP of development. What we see is a product manager who is now a developer or a designer or a project manager. And when you have product manager report to the head of marketing, guess what? We have a new marketing specialist. So in my experience, most companies have plenty of subject matter expertise, and what they need is product management expertise, and that needs to start from above.
Makes a lot of sense. Greg, I'm going to move to the second one. I believe this was your answer. I look for roles that show aptitude in certain areas: initiative, bias for action, user orientation, collaboration, social skills, the ability to prioritize, influence without authority, systems thinking and logic, depending on the product, some sort of technical proficiency. It seems like what you just described in those aptitudes is almost what Steve was just talking about, right? Some capability in product management, even if it's not formally that. Talk to me about your answer and sort of what Steve was just saying.
Well, that wasn't necessarily my answer, but I agree with it. But I agree with Steve.
I thought that was your answer.
No,
it's a good answer, so I'll take credit.
It's very, very close to mine.
Okay.
So I agree with Steve. I think that the leader of the product management group needs to actually have the product management skill sets. They can teach a lot of people. You can pull people from everywhere else. The idea that the head of what your product management needs, you need to have a very well-rounded group that is, maybe made up of people that have sales oriented or business orientations or technology orientations or, design or customer experience, things like that. You need to have those as you start building out the teams, and you can teach product management to a lot of people. But there are certain key skills that are really key to a product manager. And I think that one of the basics is the willingness to learn.
Agreed.
No doubt about that. And
Um,
John, I just looked at it. This was actually your first answer. So let me punt that question to you.
Yeah.
Now
So,
that,
I mean,
now that Greg is taking credit for your answer, John, what did you mean when
I
you
did
said
that last week too.
it's yes and around here. We're all sharing. Yeah, so I think the first answer talked about how you bring in people without product management experience and you teach them product management. And then Steve said basically yes but you need to have product management experience at the top to teach those people the product management. I think is basically the premise there. And as you know, in all the hiring I've done, I've hired people straight out of school. I've hired people who used to be product managers, and I've created a team of people who are misfits from various different groups. I think which is why I said you just need to find people with these sort of characteristics. You'll find those characteristics in places like customer service because they have extreme empathy for the user a lot of the time. But also they also can have a transactional view, which is not useful, right? You need to have a sort of systems level, longer relationship kind of a view, which is where somebody like like Steve's background, the sales engineer, comes in, right? They're building more of a relationship and still understanding the customer's problems and how to solve them and things like that. I have seen problems with developers that become product managers being more inside out thinking, being I have a technology, I'm going to sell it to you and you're going to buy it because it's cool. That is not always the case. Google has been remarkably successful with very technology oriented product managers, former developers that made the ladder switch. But it's definitely not always the case. I think having an inherent outside in mentality, an empathy for other humans is like super important. And then being able to think about things, systems things, and break down problems is the other thing. Otherwise you just have a therapist. So.
The empathy.
And I think you said this, but to call it out specifically, and an orientation around the market view as opposed to a customer view.
Exactly.
My biggest issue with sales teams, and I love salespeople, as you all know, salespeople can only think about the customer in front of them. They can't see the market full. They can't see the forest. They can only see the trees. And the same tends to be true of customer support. They look at things through the lens of one. And so you do need somebody who embraces systems thinking, absolutely, but also looks at the patterns rather than the individual incidents.
Yeah, as we talked about before, it's like you're trying to understand the customer's need as opposed to their want. The sales teams are always like, let's solve the customer's want at the time right now, as opposed to like, what do they actually need to do what they're trying to accomplish now, but also in the future. You're not going to pigeonhole yourself. And then John, you're absolutely right. It's like, I have the solution. I have this problem, I'm trying to find a solution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the empathy is key. And it was said earlier by a couple of people, it's also the willingness to learn. I've said, if somebody's open to learning and is good at engaging with people and looking for the trends, I can teach them to do product management, right? We don't, if somebody's not open to learning and changing and looking at trends, then they're not going to be good